rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. It's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go to sleep. The end.
Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show, and I hope you're staying your blank at home, right? So, yeah, listen, guys, on the serious, right, stay home. One of the things I was watching, well, firstly, welcome, Diane.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Vincent Squire we have on the phone. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I was watching the news. Well, wait a minute. Should we just dive right into COVID-19, or should I talk about that delicious chicken I made?
We don't need to dive right in. We talk about it every day, all day.
All right. So
this is the Eric Dawson Show, so I'm just in for the ride.
So
listen and don't talk.
Diane, did you see the chicken that I made last night?
It was so good.
So Amina bought it.
So good.
Amina, we ran down on some woman who was selling an Instapot on one of those, like, No. Like, you can go, hey babe, what's the name of the place you got the Instapot from? Let Go. See,
for real?
See, I'm starting to pull her into the show between the two of us, Diane. See, she'll text you and then she'll yell from upstairs, right? So she's contributing to the show. But
she's a behind the scenes producer.
Oh, she's So Let Go. Pretty soon I'm gonna have her popping in on the screen. But Let Go is a place kind of like the One Ad Press. When I was younger, there was a magazine called the One Ad Press. You used to be able to go there, and I bought about 4 or 5 hoopties from there, and I think I bought a washing machine and some other stuff. Anyway, now because of new technology, it's all online, so it's called Let Go.
Right.
And you can go there, you can post things that you want to sell, or you can see things that people sell. So this woman was selling this Instapot, and so we ran down on her in Jersey City and got this Instapot. And I'll tell you.
So how does that work? They have to mail it to you, or you have to go pick it up, or have to work?
You gotta go get it. So we've actually got a bunch of stuff from there, and I'm getting ready to disable it on Amina's phone because everything somebody's letting go, we don't need to get. So, but anyway, the Instapot is brilliant. It is brilliant. So the Instapot is my new best thing next to an air fryer. Right? So in this Instapot, because she said to me last night, she said, I said, what are we going to have for dinner? She said, oh, let's have the chicken and rice you made. And I didn't like the way we had it the night before. And, what they say, when in doubt, throw it out, right? So I said, no, we're going to throw that out. So then I couldn't figure out what to have, but we had this frozen chicken. It was like rock hard frozen. And I went on YouTube and it said you could put this frozen chicken right in the Instapot. So I'm like, okay. It said 90 minutes, it'll be perfect. Diane, I threw that chicken. You guys go look on my page. I put that chicken frozen in the Instapot. I put about a cup of barbecue sauce in there, half a cup of water in there, some diced onions, some onion powder, some garlic, right? Some other seasonings in there. I closed that thing, put the pressure cooker on high for 90 minutes. Voila.
So it's sort of like a steamer.
It's like a pressure. Well, it does a lot of things. It's a pressure cooker. You can bake in it. Apparently, I haven't done that yet. You can. You can. So I'm actually gonna bake a cake in it. It says you can bake a cake in this thing.
Okay.
So, but look, I thought that it was brilliant. That you could take a frozen chicken. I mean, think about how many times, you're trying to figure out what to cook and you didn't take whatever it was out of the freezer. So now you got to go through the whole thawing process. And
that's what happens. Yeah.
You don't have to do this, Diane. You go straight to the pot. Straight
Well,
to the pot.
I was telling you, my cousin has one and she loves it. I need to get one. I thought I had one, but apparently I don't. I have a crock pot. So I'm going to invest in one because I'm one of those people that wait to the last minute on what I'm going to cook for dinner.
Yeah.
And it's frozen. And then I'm trying to throw it out in the microwave.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Ice.
Nope. Go straight to the pot. Straight to the pot. And I know Gaetano's looking. Gaetano, when I say straight to the pot, I'm not talking weed. I'm talking the Instant Pot. See, all roads lead back to marijuana for Gaetano. So we're talking about the.
Well, let me say this: the views and opinion on the Eric Dawson Show are the expression. But Eric, I think your next pod show should be, the Eric Dawson cooking show.
Well,
I told him that. I said you need to do a live video so we can sit and watch you cook. But you won't do it yet.
No, I won't.
I know it's coming.
You know it is.
Does that,
well, you know what I'd like to do?
Get the cookbook.
If I could rent, like I need in order to do it, I want to have like a
fabulous kitchen.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And then so anybody out there who has one who wants to partner with me, we can start a podcast on cooking, right? I'm down for that. And I'm not even joking. We can't do it now because we got to have social distancing. So I ain't coming to your house right now. But
and as Sam Jackson said,
yeah, I'm not coming. But after this is over, after post COVID-19, if you want to do a cooking show and partner with me, right? Or you know what? I'll give you top billing. I'll partner with you, right? We can do a cooking show. And we will blow it out of the water.
I think so.
Absolutely. I think so too. So think about it, anybody. I got all the technology. I'll bring my lights. I'll bring my cameras. I'll bring everything. All you have to do is let me use your space, and we can bounce things off of each other. We can teach people how to cook healthy. You know what? Speaking of that, my sister, and I got to apologize to her later on today. And Amina says that I'm becoming grumpy.
You're becoming what?
Grumpy. What do you say, love? She said becoming.
I think all men over 52 or 55 are grumpy about everything.
Yeah, you know what? And sometimes, Diane, it just comes out. Like sometimes, I realize, I find myself becoming. Well, my dad wasn't grumpy. My grandfather was. So I'm becoming more and more a mixture of my dad and my grandfather as I get older.
That's what you meant in your 50s say. Oh, it's not me. My grandfather was this way. This is how he was. Okay, if he was that way, why would you want to be grumpy like your grandfather?
You can't help
was?
it. Some of it is biology. I mean, some of it is just your genomes. It's your makeup. It's who you are. And so last night I was talking to my sister. She called me up, and she was furious. She said, "Eric, all of these black folks are dying from COVID-19, and I'm looking at it, and I'm mad because there was a person on the phone. Hey, Vincent, mute your mic. There was a person on the phone who was on air at a news thing, and they were talking about it, and she was the doctor, and I was pissed off because she wouldn't talk about it from the from the point of view that it should have been talked about. So I said, well, what was that? So she said, well, a lot of the reason we have these underlying issues have to do with the way we eat. Now, my sister, because she was diagnosed with breast cancer, right? She changed her complete, not just her diet, she changed her complete lifestyle, right? So she is like hardcore vegan, like hardcore, like strap on a helmet, we going to war vegan, right? So she's influenced me and some other folks in the family, and so she comes from that perspective, and so she really wanted people to. And I said, well, Lynn, I said they are talking about it. I said they may not be talking about it, exactly the way that you want them to talk about it, but people are talking about, the fact that we have heart disease, diabetes, all these other kinds of issues, and now we see that these are underlying conditions which leave you more vulnerable to bad outcomes when it comes to coronavirus. I said, so folks are talking about it. And so she said, well, they're not talking about the way and I said, well, they're not talking. And we kept going back and forth. And then she finally said, listen, I'm getting upset. I'm going to hang up the phone. Good night. And so I hung up, and I got to call her and mend the fences. But I think that because I guess people are talking about it. And I guess what I carried into that conversation with her was the fact that there are more news outlets out there. We talk about it on this show, but there are more newslets out there, right? And so I said, instead of saying people are not talking about it, just say you haven't plugged into the news sources that are talking about it, because they are, but that, she thought I was being an ass. So.
Pretty much, you guys over 55, I tell you.
So I got to call her and I apologize to her for being cranky. But anyway, people are dying at alarming, black people are dying at an alarming rate because of these underlying issues. And so the graphic that I put at the beginning of the show was, in the age of COVID-19, do Black Lives Matter? That's a question.
Well, there are 70% in Louisiana, they just found out, to be black people of color who have contracted and died from the disease. So, yes, it is. And once again, maybe that's why the president has such hesitations on containing this, because he's looking at thinning the population.
I don't know about that. I don't think he's that smart to think that far in advance. I think, again, a lot of this has to do with demographics, how we live, because as black people, we live more in communal type settings and neighborhoods, and it's more of us in together as opposed to living out in the suburbs where the numbers might be different, where we're spread out apart.
Right. So some of it, Vincent, are the underlying conditions. So somebody is diagnosed with COVID-19. They have diabetes. They have heart disease. They have whatever the other issues are. Asthma,
high blood pressure, diabetes, heart condition,
asthma, which could be contributed to environmental racism. So they have all these things, right? But in addition to that, and I was posting articles today, we also have racist bias, a bias within the medical industry, right? And that goes back to the conversation of how they see us, right? And there was a report that I read that said 80% of whites, 80% have racial bias. Many of them don't even know that they do, but they do because they're inundated on a daily basis with negative imagery about black people, right? We're lazy, right? We're not smart. I'm sorry, Diane?
I said we're violent.
We're violent. We're all of these different things. And so you got to imagine that can't escape, because in that 80% of white people are doctors and nurses and other caregivers, right? So when they're inundated, whether it's headlines or news reports or whatever other kinds of things, or how they learn about us in school, right? So when we talk about the curriculum that's in school and how they grow up believing black people are. Well, at some point they graduate medical school, right? They get their nursing degree, and now they're in a medical institution where we walk in the door and they have been preconditioned over decades sometimes in terms of how they see us. And so now, in the midst of a pandemic, right, not only do we have these other issues that have been in large part due to environmental racism, other racist policies that have left us behind and left us at the very bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, not being able to afford healthy food, not being able to live in certain kinds of communities where healthy food is available, right? Living in communities where where they could build a 6-acre switching station right across the street from you. You understand what I'm saying? Where you go down Neck and it smells like all hell. Where you drive down the turnpike and the parkway, or down the turnpike rather, and you got to roll your windows up because of the smell. And think about those people who live in those areas. Those are not high income areas. Right. All of that. Right? The cancer carcinogens in our water. Right? The lead in our water. All of these things piled on black people and poor people. And now you get hit with COVID-19.
Yeah, but I think, Eric, that has a lot to do with the design of how cities are created. When you go back to when Newark was established, because it's one of the oldest cities in the country, once the city became so overpopulated, people started to move out into the suburbs. But the people who moved out into the suburbs were people who could afford to move away from the city and be able to drive back in, because at that time there wasn't always public transportation to get back into the city jobs. So I think that created separation of people, of the have and the have-nots. It always has to do with, do you have the access to be able to live somewhere else with more land around you, more space where your kids can run and play in fresh air, or do you have to be tight up under other apartment buildings and houses in congested communities where of gases and stuff coming from cars and trains and everything else. So I think that was the beginning of people being the separation. And like you said, then when the economy changed and black people were able to acquire better jobs and then move out of the city. For instance, my mom moved out of Jersey City into Hillside, which was the suburbs at that time. I wouldn't really consider it a suburb now, but at that time was to get away from the fast city life and to be able to raise your children where you had a better school system, where they could go outside and play, where there was more grass than there was concrete, so then that's where the separation starts. It's always about the money. So when you leave people behind in these larger cities don't get the resources and stuff they're supposed to get, because now the people with the real money are taking their money out of the system and they're put out of the city and moving into other suburbs where they can live better and flourish.
Well, if you also look at the pandemic that we're experiencing and people with prejudice, here is a factor that you have to consider. We are short on ventilators. Now, blacks are now becoming more of the majority going into these hospitals and needing help with the shortage of the ventilator. So, who makes the decision of who gets a ventilator?
Right.
And how do they see that patient?
There we go. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But then the other thing is to look at, why haven't we pushed and encouraged our kids to be doctors? Why do other communities say, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer?
Well,
why haven't we done that?
Listen, all of that plays a part in it. But what Vincent is saying is critical, right? That you have that decision maker, that bedside doctor that may be looking at a black person and may have some, have these biases and trying to make some decisions, about what to do. And let's say he's got this one patient, this white patient, who's a lawyer or some other prominent kind of person or middle class person, or they perceive them to be anyway, right? And then you've got a black person who doesn't seem to be, or maybe a janitor, or maybe some other non-essential worker, right? And so now the doctor is looking and making choices about the value of life.
Absolutely.
Right? The value of one life over the other. There was an article, and then I know we have a caller. Caller, please hold for 1 second. I
got you, Eric. You take your time, brother. It's fine.
There was an article or a piece that that I looked at. I don't know what just happened to Vincent.
All
right, hold on for 1 second. Vincent, are you still back on? All right, I'm not sure what's going on with Vincent's technology.
Okay.
Hold
the
on.
article.
Wait 1 second. Vincent.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not sure why you keep disconnecting, sir. But let's try to stay on. But the piece that I read, it said that it says that we should, instead of focusing on bedside doctors, that we should really be moving toward what they're calling triage teams. All right, I can't take Vincent's call. Hold on. Vincent.
Yes.
All right. Why? I'm not sure why you keep disconnecting, but if you do again, I can't take your call because it's disrupting the show.
Can't hear you, Eric.
No. Now you can.
Okay.
But I'm saying if Vincent continues, I can't continue to do that.
You want to take the caller? Go ahead and take the caller.
Yeah. Well, let me finish this point, and then I'll take the caller. But that we should be moving away from bedside doctors and moving more toward what they're calling triage teams, right? And the idea of a triage team is that they would have just very basic information about the patient with which to determine the level of treatment. See, the bedside doctor actually sees the patient, sees whether the patient is Hispanic or black or Asian or white, right? And they get to make some other kinds of decisions based on emotion, right? Because they're right there bedside. But if you have a triage team and that chart simply goes up to that triage team, that triage team is now assessing just the information that's on that chart and making recommendations about the level of treatment for that particular patient. I like that idea. And
what makes you think they aren't doing that now?
Because
not. Usually in just these situations, that is how they
But I'm saying
operate.
they're not. What they're doing is you have a doctor right there who's making a decision about how to treat that patient. The patient comes in, if I don't know the last time you've been in an emergency room, but when you go in, there's a doctor, and the doctors get your chart, they bring another doctor in, and they make decisions based on that. All right, I think I lost all my calls. Diane, call back. So anyway, while I'm getting the calls back, guys, I think that we should really be looking into some other form of dealing with this. Go ahead, Diane.
I don't have anything. I'm good. You want to take the caller?
Yeah, let's take this caller. Caller, go.
Hey, am I on, Eric?
Good morning.
Am I on the air?
You are.
What's up, Eric? It's Brian Powers for Revolution Radio. How you doing, brother?
Wait a minute, I have two people. I have Farrakhan, and who's the other person?
Yeah, I'm still here. I can hear you.
Hold on.
There you go.
Who's the other person on the air?
It's Brian Powers from New Jersey Revolution Radio.
Oh, hey, Brian. What's going on?
All right, man. I heard you talking there, and I just thought I'd check in and go a little bit. I hope you're doing well, and I appreciate what you're getting out some good factual data. And I know that, we're trying to do the same over here. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate it. And I just basically called to back you up, man. I mean, what you're saying is 1,000,000% true. The only point of disagreement I would have with you is your 80% people are prejudiced. I will tell you that 100% of people are prejudiced. Not everybody is racist, but all of us, by human nature, have preconceived notions about other people. When I look at an Asian woman or a bald man or something, there's always a preconceived notion that goes along with that. And when you live in a country founded and grown up by white supremacy and white supremacist culture, what you have is media, as you refer to, as this imagery of African Americans or other stereotypical people, being bad guys in movies and things like that. Yeah. So, that's why what we talk about in our conversations and what we put out there in media and how we express ourselves and our opinions, in public, weaves that social fabric that creates these prejudices and these really, at this point now, deadly racism. Yeah. So, I just wanted to call it and back you up. There's real science behind these things. The psychology is real science, and it's worth studying nowadays, especially when it comes to how we relate to it. And for those that don't know, this is a white guy calling right now. Dealing with my white privilege has played into a lot of these kind of psychological aspects of our society. So I just wanted to make that point, man, and let you guys know that I love what you're doing.
Hey, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
It has, if I could. White privilege is the key, but here is one of the important aspects to look at. Does your white privilege and your belief in or your prejudice about another race, or does it affect your ability to do your job? If you are in a situation where you're the one choosing between life and death. Yeah, it always does. And what I would say is, this is my opinion, by the way, I'm not a doctor or whatever, but I think our prejudices dictate our behaviors every day and every way. And, as I stated, that's why, when we portray, races in media and movies, when we report on stories a certain way, when we lock up certain types of individuals, that sends messages out into society that it's okay to make certain decisions. So, when we're talking I'm talking bigger picture here. I'm talking, a little bit of social fabric work. So the answer to your question is, no matter what, when you put out a negative stereotype, when you talk about somebody in a negative light in relation to their race, ethnicity, gender, or whatever, you're continuing that process of endangering people, and I hope that I'm making sense how we can all put this together.
Hello, Brian. I'm Chief Farrakhan. I agree with you 100% that all people are prejudiced. Right? I don't think there's everybody has a preconceived notion.
It's just how we think. It's not a bad thing.
But here's the thing, and here's where it's different. As a black person, and my experience with black people in dealing with our prejudice towards other people, what we are not, historically, is bias. See, you can be prejudiced, but if you are prejudiced and you are biased towards that, then that means that now you will do something or treat a group of people a certain way because of your prejudice. Blacks have always been treated a negative way by all the other societies because of their biasness towards blacks. However, in black America and in black society, we have always opened our arms, whether prejudiced or not. We have opened our lives, our societies, everything to every other society and gotten slapped, gotten sick, gotten beaten, we've gotten virus poison, we've gotten it all. So I think there's a huge difference, and that's where white privilege and Indian privilege and any privilege other than the privilege of being black comes into effect in this world. Right? Well, here's it. So, and the other thing I just want to say before I hang up, and I'll let all y'all go, is Eric, when you talk about that triage team thing with the doctors, extremely dangerous. I don't know if you ever saw the movie I, Robot with Will Smith. And he hated the robot. And the reason he hated the robot is because when they had an option of choosing, a robot had an option of choosing to save a little 6-year-old girl or to save him, the robot used the triage mindset of who had a better probability of survival, and that's who I'm going to work with first. And that's not how human nature doesn't think. We always think like, look, you got a 90-year-old person who's hurt, and you got a 6-year-old child who's hurt. Which one are you going to take first? Most are going to say, take the kid. See if we can give all your efforts to the kid. That's the difference between the triage and the bedside doctor. The bedside doctor is there to use bedside manner and use all of their possible knowledge and skill. Whereas if you're using triage, you're just saying, I think I can get this guy over here to live and not that guy. And most people don't want that. I think it's a little dangerous to say we'll use a triage system that says who is more likely to survive.
But let me give you some food for thought, and I'm glad that you're bringing a lot more diversity to this conversation. But correct me if I'm wrong, because my grandparents are Italian, and they not only experience, have a level of, sometimes in some situations, a level of entitlement, but they also got upset when they experienced prejudice against other ethnicities in the Caucasian realm. The Italians were very much picked on in New York. The Irish were very much picked on in other areas of society. So it's not just a black-white prejudice; it's a people or culture prejudice as well. You have, look in Italy, you have northern Italians who still to this day don't talk to southern Italians. And you have
right, but I want to keep it up, but I want to keep this. We can't talk over each other. We can't talk over. We got again. We can't talk over.
We got light-skinned blacks who don't like dark-skinned blacks.
I'm gonna hang the phone up because we can't talk over each other. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
Thank you. I want to keep this in the realm of the statistics that are coming out that are deathly alarming with regard to a disproportionate number of black people dying after contracting COVID-19. I don't want to veer all the way over into those other areas. And I want people to understand that if we're talking about this thing going, I mean, they're saying that we won't have a vaccine for another year, right? They're saying that we're not going to peak in terms of deaths for another couple weeks, and they're saying that this thing may go well into the summer. So during all of this time, the percentages of black people dying exists, and all of the underlying stuff is there. So those numbers is nothing that's going. So they're talking about flattening the curve, doing all these different things. I'm asking the question: how are you going to flatten the curve that we now see in terms of the disproportionate number of black people dying after contracting COVID-19? Right. So,
can I ask Eric? Can I ask you in Newark? I mean, just because I guess that's when I think of what we're talking about here in Newark, I mean, is the response ready? I mean, are the hospitals prepared? Are tents up? Are they thinking of ways? Are ventilators ready? I mean, I don't know, because looking at the trends, I think New York is like a little behind the curve of New York City. So, as far as like the progression of the hot spot, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it too. Are we putting resources?
No, but that's what I'm saying, Brian. And that's why I want to keep the. That's right. That's why I want to keep the conversation right here because this is coming, and black folks are going to be, black communities are going to be devastated, and there's nobody working on preparing for it, right? But it's happening at an alarming rate.
Y'all need to start preparing about a month ago.
Hey, to answer your question, there aren't things in place for predominantly white neighborhoods.
I'm not talking about white neighborhoods. I want to get back to black neighborhoods.
Wait. So you know that in predominantly black neighborhoods, if they don't have the equipment in white neighborhoods, what do you think's happening in the black neighborhoods?
But I'm saying this, but we already know because we're looking at the statistics. I'm saying, what are we doing? That is the question. What are we doing? Not that it doesn't exist. We know it exists. We just quoted some statistics. So, but what are we doing? What's happening actively now?
There's real urgency here, and I think that some of the response, and I call it my own town here in Woodbridge, which is clearly a racist town. I call up a non-emergency line for help, and I basically had a cop tell me to go fuck myself. I mean, that's the seriousness of urgency we're dealing with here in white neighborhoods. So the other caller made a great point, and thanks for bringing that up. Like, if we're not prepared here, and we've got the attitude of telling our citizens to fuck off when they call in unsafe conditions, yeah.
But Eric, I think you make a great point, but but it has sort of two sides to it for me. One is it that blacks are, I don't want to say predispositioned to die from this or to be affected from this, or is it where our societies are? In other words, are blacks dying from it in the suburb in the same way that blacks in the inner cities are? If it's blacks in the inner cities that seem to be dying at a higher rate, then we already know that being in an inner city is more for a pandemic or for a virus of this, which is a communicable disease, that it is going to foster that and spread easy, right? So the only thing that you can really do, I know I might get yelled at for this one, in the black community, right, or in those inner cities, it has to be a total lockdown. If social distancing seems to be the way to stop it, the reason you won't see it happening to white America in the same type of numbers is because when they begin to social distance, they don't live on top of each other in this planet. We live on top of each other. And because of that, social distancing would have to be times 10 in the black community. Because in the black community, black people are still trying to go to work. Black people are still trying to do things that people in the suburbs can say, I can fall back.
No, but I understand all of that. But this is my point. So my point to you is this. Everybody knows exactly what you talk about. Everybody understands everybody knows all of the issues, socioeconomic disparities. Everybody knows the overcrowdedness, the horrible diet, the racial wealth gap, the income gap, all of that. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. So when you mix all of that up in a pot and say these are the ingredients that exist over here, right? And then you pour in COVID-19. I'm saying what you're gonna get is what we see reported now. And the question that I'm asking is this, which is what Brian said. Hey, listen, that means that we need to have more ventilators, right? Because we understand and we need to make sure that the medical staff that's there is fully knowledgeable about these underlying conditions, right? And there needs to be additional care given to save these lives. That's what needs to happen. So like we say here, when America has a cold, black people have pneumonia. But so you can't treat it the same. You understand what I'm saying? So when they're looking right now and saying, well, how do we treat COVID-19? They're looking and trying to create a blanket approach to treating it. And you have to have a multi-tiered approach. You got to have one for America, and you got to have a different one for black people. That's what I'm getting at. And right now, I'm sorry, Diane?
They're not going to create that. It's the same one we talked about, and Shakima Thomas said it in the feed. Why would they prepare for impact of COVID-19 in Newark when they haven't even taken care of the clean water?
Well, that's my point. There you go. So what there is, look, guys, I'm gonna put it to you like this. It's like we always we talk about and this is superficial stuff, but it happens, right? We say, you know what? When they make Band-Aids, they don't make Band-Aids for black people. They make Band-Aids for white people. That's why when you put a Band-Aid on your skin, it doesn't, right? It doesn't camouflage, right? Everything that they're making, they're not making it for us. So the way that they're building this approach to dealing with COVID-19, they're not making it for us.
Right.
And I'm saying, so now we got black electeds. Here we go again. We got these folks in there. My question is, while Cory Booker was sitting there cheesing it with Murphy yesterday, right, just looking at trying to get reelected, where your do-nothing congressman in the 10th congressional district, where are they? Where are they coming to bat and saying, whoa, we got a problem. Whatever you guys are doing here, you need to put it on steroids for black people.
Well, they can't do that because they don't identify with us. They only use us.
There you go. That's the key. They don't identify with us. Now, if they, and once again, we know the condition. We know the black condition. We know the black struggle. We know the problems happening in the urban cities. We also know that even in the cities that are happening in the suburbs where there are less black populated, that they're ill prepared for. And we know that right now, in fact, a lot of people have been bracing themselves, or people who have some level of matriculation or intelligence have been bracing themselves for this impact. What we have to do is understand this in the black community. One, hold it, let me finish. This is not a freaking extended weekend. This is an actual disease that's killing people, and black people more than ever. And what we have to do is this. We know that they're not giving us proper medical attention and care, so why are we going out there? Why do we not wash our hands? Why do we not wear masks? We know what can stop it. Yet we're sitting up here looking for somebody else to come and be our savior. That crap's got to stop. If we're going to save the community, then we got to have some freaking common sense ourselves.
Amen.
We can't sit up here and bust into the line to get the last freaking bottle of vodka when all this stuff is going on and it's highly contagious. Airborne. You can breathe it. Guy called me an asshole because I said to him he needs to be wearing a mask. We got to take this thing serious.
We need this urgency. We really do. And Eric, I thank you, and I thank you all for this conversation. It's important. You are speaking truth, and I hope that power is listening. I don't know that they are, but, and Eric, I'm going to plug my show real quick, right?
Go for it, brother.
Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on New Jersey Revolution Radio. You can watch us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. If you know how to use the internet, you can find us. Check us out 8 p.m. tomorrow. Myself, my partner, Diane Moxie. We're going to be talking about community responses to this thing, and how is your community, whether it's your organization community, your labor community, your township, whatever it is, how is your community responding to this crisis? And we want to hear the good, we want to show the bad, we want to highlight everything that's going on in these kind of local and small communities. So check us out, comment on the feeds. Eric, keep speaking the truth, everybody. I love you all, and please, for the love of God, be safe. Don't be afraid to tell your neighbors to be safe. If they need to get a little polite smack on the back of their head, that's cool. It could save their life, So I appreciate what you're doing, all right?
Oh, thanks. I appreciate your guys on the Revolution signing my petition as well.
Love you, brother. Take care.
Thank you.
You too. God bless you.
So here's why I have the issue. And Diane, it has been building up, right? These conspiracy theorists in our community, building up. Right? These conspiracy theorists in our community who are out there posting this stuff, creating confusion, right? There should be a single message coming from every black person that has a platform, that believes in some way, shape, or form you are an influencer. And that single message needs to be that we need to protect ourselves. We need to stay at home. We need to social distance. We need to cover our mouths. We need to put on gloves. We need to wash our hands. That is it. All of this other nonsense doesn't make sense right now.
Right.
Doesn't. It doesn't. And what you're doing by promoting your own selfish goddamn agenda is putting lives at risk. You see, but it's crazy for me because I see these conspiracy theorists. On one hand, they're confusing the marketplace, but then on the other hand, they post these statistics about black folks dying at disproportionate rates. Well, don't you think you're part of the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Of course they know they're part of the problem because these guys are fueling their own agenda so their cash register can ring. These guys are confusing everybody so that everybody can stop listening to the minds that know the statistics and are in there and telling you what's really happening so that people can listen to them. And these guys are not experts. They're not professionals. They're just somebody sitting up there in their freaking basement, trying to mute it with every time their mother yell at them and putting out propaganda for the simple fact of saying, look at me, I got a whole lot of likes and followers. Please buy my book. Please Please, listen to my blog. Please give me all
Look,
this
guys.
attention. And in the meantime, they're killing people.
Look, guys, we have to figure this out. We have to figure this out. We have to get so look, right now, Black lives don't matter. They don't matter. Because there is no very specific plan to deal with our specific need right now. And people are dying. That's it. They're dying. People are dying. This is devastating. And there is no black plan. And we literally have buffoons as elected officials.
So let me tell you about one buffoon. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot had some backlash on social media because she was defending the fact that she got a haircut last week with her hairstylist, and she claimed that they were using social distancing. However, the picture did not show the stylist with a mask and gloves on. So what do you think people are thinking when you're telling them they can't do things, but you run out and do it? And she essentially said, well, you know, I'm in the public eye on a regular basis. So the shots that we're taking that were circulating on social media over the weekend,
Right.
You know, she was upset about, but she still was like, you know, she said, in quotes, the woman who cut her hair had a mask and gloves on, and I was practicing what I was preaching.
Right. So look, here's the deal. I think that again, I just hope that there's a special place in hell for folks who are contributing to the to the death toll. Because everything that you do has either a negative or a positive impact on somebody else. And so here's a time where there's some responsibility that has to be taken. And so for her, what I would say is, look, you put lives at risk, right? You put your staff at risk because you wanted to go get a freaking your hair done. You put your staff at risk. So it's not about spinning and what the imagery is going to look like and how you're going to get your press people to go and cover it. No, the reality is when you did what you did, right? It's one thing having to go to the store or do some other very essential kinds of things. But every time you're doing something that's non-essential, right, you're taking a risk. And it's not just a risk on yourself. You're taking a risk on, listen, there was a report about I saw it yesterday, right? There was a barber who, or somebody who, a barber who cut somebody's hair, and that barber contracted COVID-19, right? You know, listen, whenever you're out, and I posted yesterday too about the bus driver, right? Who got, I mean, my heart just breaks for his widow and for those kids. You know, some callous ass woman decided that she felt that she had a right, to get on a bus and not wear a mask. Whether or not she had gotten caught up in some of this conspiracy bullshit, right, about being some man-made disease and we don't get it and this, that, and the other, and it's because of 5G and blah, 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 blah. You know what? At the end of the day, there's a man who's dead now as a result of it. And and there's a woman who doesn't have her husband coming home to her ever again. And their children who are going to suffer for the rest of their goddamn lives because of it. But whoever that woman is, you know what? She's living her best life right now.
Until she's not.
Go ahead, caller.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? God bless you, and I love you guys. I just wanted, I'm glad that you're on this topic because yesterday I was so disgusted, and also this morning. So I'm washing my dishes yesterday, and my house, you can see the back of the village, the reservoir. I looks out the window as I'm washing the dishes, and I see adults, kids, everybody running around in this village. So, okay, I take a picture of that. I try my best. After that, I promise you, it had to be about 15 kids all gathered together praying. Now, what people need to keep in mind this as well, because they don't have a symptom or whatever, these children can be carriers as well. That's one. This morning, I see my girlfriend, she's on the live talking to me on Facebook, the messenger phone call. She had to go to work at FedEx. The bus, somebody needs to contact New Jersey Transit, and they need to tell them, our local officials need to tell them that, number one, they're not practicing social distancing. They're still packing these buses. The bus was so packed. A girl went to go sit by her, and she said, excuse me, don't sit by me. You know, I'm practicing social distancing. Number one is somebody in front of her, somebody behind her, whatever. She said, please don't sit by me. This is enough already. The girl still goes to sit by her. She asked her to move. She would move. She knocked her right on the floor. I bet she got up. And it's sad that you have to be that way. It's really ridiculous that how they still packing up the bus. New Jersey Transit. How people are still letting their kids run around. I went to the corner store, just ran in the store, and I stood outside. Let me show you the ignorance. I'm standing outside because there's people in the store. So people see me standing outside, and they walk in to come. I said, excuse me, there's enough people in the store. So they stand right there. And 3 people standing on the side of me, but we practice social distancing. Now you got other people coming that's going to walk ahead of you and just go walk into the store, and you saying, listen, it's too many people in the store. This is the ignorant. Oh, that's a myth. I was told the other day that it was a myth, too. You know, it's ridiculous that our people, not only black people, the Latinos, too, okay, store by themselves, the kids getting their little candy. When they walk out the door, they're not washing their hands. They're opening up the candy, and they're walking across the street eating it.
But you know what, though? But here's where, but you know what? See, we have lost fucking control at every level, at every single level, and we have allowed the uncivilized to rule our communities. You see, see what has to look. This is what I would do, China, but it's not going to happen. See, every single store, and I posted this the other day. Every single store that's in our community, that's allowing people to come into that store without masks and without gloves, they need to be shut down. And if government's not going to shut them,
mandating that. The governor should be mandating that.
No,
but
you know what? No, you know what? But here's what I'm saying. We gotta, and I agree with Vincent here. We gotta stop looking for government to do what we can do ourselves. We can shut that goddamn store down ourselves in our own community. Why are we allowing them to allow this thing to spread? So now we're going to run to the governor? God damn it, the store's right around the corner from you.
Yep.
Why are you going to call a goddamn governor?
And the governor got all he can handle right now trying to get...
Come on, people. But see, you know what? But this is what I said. But here's what happens. And it's all tied in. Remember I told you one of the most fearful things for me last summer was to see how older people were training our younger people to be docile in the middle of a fight. So while this whole issue in Newark was taking place around lead in the water, cancer carcinogens in the water, instead of people being encouraged to fight back, they were encouraged to stand in a goddamn line. And then they brought their kids and taught their kids how to stand in line and be quiet and just wait for somebody to do something for you. And so now here we are at war, and we have no soldiers in our communities. And we don't have them because the black elected officials have done a great job being Negro whisperers and slave catchers. Congratulations. And now black people are dying because of it. Come on. Tell the truth.
Gotcha.
Agree. You guys have a great day today.
You too, China. Thank you.
But tell the truth about where it comes from. And so now what we do, we say, oh, we got to call the governor. No, you don't. Just go to that store and shut it down.
Right now, you can't call the governor. And you have to actually go out there and shut it down yourself. The governor and the mayor right now are trying to figure out how they're going to brace for impact. If this guy is affecting your community, your neighborhood, and your life, you need to shut him down. You need to sit up there and stand at the door and tell people, no, don't go in there because he won't make people wear masks.
Sad-ass black people.
Instead of people sitting up there going, get out of my way, I got to get my bottle. No, you you should agree with that. Your life should matter to you.
I'm tired of
I
it.
say it again.
Scared
There are some
ass
people
black
that don't need to be
people
saved.
allowing savages to run your lives. That's what's happening. Scared black people allowing savages to run and risk your lives. That's what's going on right now.
And we are and we are fallen victim and showing our children how to be victims.
Unbelievable. Diane, you said you're going to keep me calm today.
I'm trying for you now. I see you reading the texts, but you're not doing it. So we need to take a couple of break so we can bring in our guest for today.
All right, so you know what? I'm going to try again. I keep trying to do this, right? Bring on a news segment. And then if I can bring on the NPR news update, and then we'll take the commercial, and then we'll come back and we'll have the guest. Is the guest online?
She's calling. I'm going to have her call in right now.
All right. So I'm trying to get the NPR piece up. Let's see if I can do it.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is disputing a government watchdog report that says hospitals are running short of coronavirus testing kits. NPR's Giles Snyder reports.
The president told reporters that the report's findings on testing are wrong, and he suggested politics may have played a part.
Give me the name of the Inspector General. Could politics be entered into that?
The report came from the Department of Health and Human Services Inspector General's office, led by Christy Grimm. She's been with the nonpartisan agency for more than 20 years and currently leads the office in an acting capacity. The IG's report is based on a telephone survey of more than 300 hospitals conducted in late March. It paints a dire picture of hospitals facing shortages of personal protective equipment and COVID-19 tests, as well as burnout among staff. Giles Snyder, NPR News.
Wisconsin is going to hold its primary election today. After all, the state Supreme Court overruled Governor Tony Evers, who tried to delay it until June. And the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in and ruled that Wisconsin voters don't get any extra time to mail back absentee ballots. Laurel White at Wisconsin Public Radio says that puts some voters in a tough position.
We are conducting a lot of the election through absentee ballots. There have been more than 1 million absentee mail-in ballots requested in the state already, but a number of those folks haven't received their ballot in the mail yet. There was a real backlog. Clerks were trying to contend with that. That's led to some problems, and so some folks are in the position today of having to weigh, they haven't received their ballot yet. Are they going to go ahead and step out? Are they going to leave their homes and risk going to the polls?
Laurel White reporting. Australia's highest court has released Cardinal George Pell from prison. It overturned his conviction on child sexual abuse. The Vatican hasn't yet commented on Pell's case, but NPR's Sylvia Poggioli reports Pope Francis indirectly referred to Pell's acquittal today.
Every morning when celebrating Mass from his Vatican residence, the Pope chooses an intention. Recently, the topic was the coronavirus epidemic. Today, he offered his Mass to all those people who suffer from unjust sentences resulting from intransigence. Pope Francis had appointed Pell to overhaul the Vatican's finances in 2014 and had said he would comment on the Cardinal's case only after all appeals were exhausted. Not mentioning Pell by name, the Pope today compared the suffering of those inflicted with unjust sentences to the way Jewish community elders persecuted Jesus with, quote, obstinacy and rage even though he was innocent, unquote. An official Vatican statement is expected later today. Sylvia Poggioli, NPR News, Rome.
You're listening to NPR.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
All right, guys, welcome back. I've calmed down a little bit.
I hope so.
But it's serious, guys. It's
I don't think so. I think you're just getting started.
And we have nobody fighting for us. Nobody fighting for us. So again, ask yourself the question: in the age of COVID-19, do Black Lives matter? All right, Diane, we have a guest for this second segment.
Yes. So, good morning. We have Deidre Finey on the phone. How are you, Deidre?
Good morning. How are you?
What's going on, Deidre?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, Deidre is not only my friend, but she's a client of mine.
That sounds like the hair show for men, Diane.
It does.
Exactly. So, Deidre has a business, and her business is a staffing company. It's called Express Pros.
Oh.
She's located in Jersey City. She's a franchise owner, has owned the business for over 10 years now. And she has some great news because she's looking for people to hire, and she's looking to help clients who need employees as well. So, Deidre, tell me a little bit about your business, where you're located, and what type of jobs do you do placement for?
Sure. So, thank you again. So, my name is Deidre. I'm with Express Employment Professionals out of Jersey City. We help companies find good people in the Hudson and Essex County areas. Just a list of some of the jobs that we're currently looking for. We're actually very busy. We're looking for a porter, first and second and third shift. We're looking for a dinner line cook. We're looking for general laborers. We're looking for warehouse maintenance. We're looking for 3 forklift drivers. We're looking for a logistics customer service rep. We're looking for laundry attendants, first and second shift. We're looking for housekeepers, first and second shift. And we're looking for a reach truck operator. So we're very busy. We are identifying the right people for the jobs. We're doing phone interviews right now. We're doing Skype interviews. There are ways that we can get you working immediately.
So, Deidre, where are the jobs located? What type of companies do you work with that you place people at? And are these just temporary jobs, or are they temp for long-term, permanent, or just, temporary to long-term temps, or are they permanent positions, or how do you work that out with your clients?
So a lot of our jobs can be temp in nature, and what that means is you would work, typically it's still a 40-hour work week, 37 to 40-hour work week, sometimes a lot of overtime, believe it or not. But sometimes they're temp to perm. Like, for example, I just got a position today for additional 4 people at a client of ours in Newark, where it's a temp to perm position. That position, I didn't even say that one because I didn't even write it on my website yet because it literally just came in about 20 minutes ago. They're looking for maintenance, someone that's handy, that can fix things as well as keep their facility clean. That one's paying $13 to $15 an hour, and that one is located right in Newark. So that role particularly is temp to perm. We do list all of our jobs on our website just to give you an idea. I just kind of listed a few of them right now, but I think Diane's going to put the link to our website onto your page because it's expresspros.com/Jersey City. Our jobs are in Hudson and Essex County, even though we're in Jersey City. We have a ton of clients in Newark. We have a ton of clients in Bayonne. We have a ton of clients in Jersey City. So if you live and you're able to get to those cities, we can help you. And we have jobs that are starting right away. And so the thing I like about temporary work is that we can get you working, pretty quickly. You're going to interview one of the team members of my staff, and then they're going to get you working. And instead of you waiting to get an interview, waiting for the company to say they're going to start you, and then it's up to you. You can put your best foot forward. You're going to show up to the job and do the best job you can, and you just never know where the opportunity might present itself to be hired full-time. We have opportunities like that all day long at a lot of our different clients. And our clients span from different types of backgrounds. Like we have some hotels, like I mentioned, housekeepers and laundry attendants. So I work with some hotels. I work with some distribution centers. They're actually very busy. They are considered essential companies, right? Our products need to get into the stores. And these individuals are really responsible for that. So it's really, really important. If you're looking for a job, I encourage you to consider a staffing firm and definitely to consider Express Employment Professionals of Jersey City.
And your website is expresspros.com?
Right. That's our general website, but if you want to get to our specific location, it's expresspros.com/Jersey City.
Okay.
And I always mix up that darn slash. So it's the slash below the question mark.
Okay. In terms of qualifications of your applicants, are these jobs friendly, or do they accept ex-incarcerated?
Yes, we do. We are offender-friendly organization. We do look for some experience, so you can't come to us with no experience. We do look that you have at least 6 months of experience, and we look to have that most recently in the last year or so. But we are, again, you're not interviewing at a company, you're only interviewing with us. And so if you represent yourself in the best light, we will get you working.
So, Deidre, I have a question. So when people call in, what are some of your recommendations when people are job searching and they're interviewing with you? What are some things that they need to be able to talk about with you to discuss so they can get hired?
So I think it's important to understand where you worked at, right? Just really be clear about where you worked in the last year. And it's okay if you worked at multiple staffing agencies or temp jobs, as it's typically called, but just be clear for where that was, what length of time you were there, what you did when you were there. Because can't tell you how many times we talk to individuals and they can't really remember the name of the company, they can't remember exactly what they did. That doesn't help you. You want to put your best foot forward by explaining to us what you did at that particular company, how long you were there, why they let you go. Just be clear about it and be honest with us. Because if you're honest with us, we will be able to get you working.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Deidre, because you know me. I started off, and I probably didn't tell you this, I started off when I was in college working for a temping agency, and I was working for the state of New Jersey. That's how I got into insurance, working in a temping agency. Not that job, but other jobs, I've been fired. So how do you express that to an interviewer about being let go from a job? What's the best way to say that you were separated?
So it really all depends on the reason, and I've heard a variety of reasons. For example, one good reason I've heard is there's a certain quota at a company, and I won't name the name of the employer, but there's an employer that has a very challenging quota, to be honest with you, and because of that, they have a very high turnover of people that work there. I get that because we talk to so many individuals that have that story, and for us, we have certain clients that may not have that same level of quota, so that's fine. We have other scenarios where you might say, well, I got let go because I missed too many days. Okay, so what did you learn from that? Are you on the right track now to get your life back in order? Because if you're just going to repeat the same thing, then at the end of the day, you're not helping me either. Because I didn't say this at the beginning, but companies pay me to find talent. Mm-hmm. They pay our firm to find talent. The employees do not pay me anything. They get a regular wage, and the negotiated rate between us, me, and the company is just that. It has nothing to do with the person's pay. So if you tell me that you were let go because you missed some days and you forgot to call out, well, what does that mean for what you're going to do in the future? If you're telling me that's behind you and that you are on the right path and you're going to set your alarm clock, you're going to get up on time, all the things to be a responsible employee, then I'm willing to give you a shot. You know, and I might put you on a smaller leash. And what I mean by that is I might put you on a day or two assignment, and I want to see how you do. And if you do a great job, then when that 2-week, 1 month, 6 month temp to perm position comes on, then that's the job that we'll consider you for. So we have kind of, things like that we discuss with them. But there are a variety of reasons for people leaving. Sometimes it's related to your child care. Sometimes it's related to your, whatever you've got going on in your life. We all have stuff going on, right? Just be honest with us and don't try to sugarcoat it, because we can help you if you're honest. If you try to lie to us and then it comes to find out that we do your reference and you were let go because you showed up late to work a couple of times and never bothered to call, now you've made us look terrible. And that's not a good representation of my firm. So it's important that you kind of put your best foot forward to us, because I think a lot of people come to a staffing firm and they think, oh, it's just a staffing firm, it's just temp. I'm going to show up however. I'm going to sag my pants down, I'm going to wear whatever. And I'm not even going to communicate with them. I'm going to check my cell phone the whole time. And that's a bad way to approach it, because we are taking notes, just like you would at any kind of company. We are taking notes about how you talk. We are taking notes about how engaged you are, what kind of questions you ask. We are still a real interview because at the end of the day, you're representing my firm when you go out to a company. And if you go out and you have the same kind of attitude where you're going to be that same way with us, to my company, as you were with us, then you're going to make us look bad. And I don't have time for that. At the end of the day, I have jobs. And if you want to work and you can show up to work every single day, I have work.
So, Deidre, I have a question.
What is the process that you run into? I used to own a temp firm, so I know what you're experiencing. Can you help them in terms of some things that will put them in the best light, starting from the application to the interview?
Yeah, so I think it's important to really fill out your application in full. Some people, believe it or not, Eric, don't even fill out an application. They just put the name of the company and maybe the year. And they don't even put, I don't know if it was a week or a month, so really fill it out. And fill it out in detail. Everything's online nowadays, right? Everything, Express has their own app. It's an Express Jobs app. You can go there and fill out an application on your phone. But please take your time and not just hit submit and have one company and you work there for a year and we're not sure. You just put 2019. I don't know if it's a week or a month. And my staff is looking at that, and they might disclude you because they might say, oh, we're not clear, what they did at this particular company. Sometimes they just give the name of the company. So it's really important to really fill out the full application so that you can, show yourself in the best light. Take your time. I know looking for a job is a job, and I don't think folks understand that sometimes. They just think, oh, somebody's going to hire me. We're in unprecedented times right now, and if we're talking what I think we're talking, and unemployment's at a 30% rate, like you mentioned earlier, Eric, and particularly in the Black community. When America has a cold, Black community has a pneumonia. So you think you don't have a job now? Trust and believe, when this thing really shakes up, it's going to be really challenging to get a job. And so how are you going to prepare yourself for a job? You cannot be lazy and just fill out half an application. You cannot be lazy and not answer your phone. Or you cannot be lazy and have that really crazy email address, because trust and believe, employers, even myself as a staffing company, we're taking all those things into consideration.
Talk to us about that crazy email address. Bridget55, kiss me twice at yahoo.com.
Yes. It's so funny you should say that, Eric, because it's so easy. I have 5 email addresses, right? Because I have a business one. I have one for a couple organizations I belong to. It takes you 30 seconds to create a professional email address that you're going to commit to checking on a regular basis. Make it your first name and your last name at whatever server you choose to use. Make it something super easy. It doesn't have to be sexy222. That's not going to cut it.
So, Deidre, I have another question. You talked about you do some Skype interviews, so that's the face-to-face with a potential client. What do you suggest as appearance and surroundings when you're doing these Skyping? Because I don't want to see, your kids running in the background and all of this noise. Like, what do you suggest?
Right. Thank you for that, plug, because even before COVID, we did phone interviews, right? And one of the things that we would tell them as soon as we get on the phone, we would say, is this a good time to talk? If the answer is no, find a better time to talk. However, to the point of the Skype interviews or Zoom interviews, I would suggest that if you do have a specific date and a time, which I'm imagining you do, you need to really dedicate that time. I don't care if the only place that's private is your bathroom. That's where you need to go. Nowadays, there's so many nice screens of backgrounds. They don't need to know unless you tell them that you're in the bathroom, right? And so set upon that time. If you have kids or if you have a dog, have someone keep them for that period of time in another room, preferably literally on a different floor if that's even possible. If it's not, in another room, let them know, listen, I have this phone interview or virtual interview at 10 o'clock. I need you to put the children down. for that period of time, especially dogs. Dogs are the worst because you can kind of control kids. You really can't control a barking dog. So if you have a barking dog, I would recommend you just take that dog and let him go outside, have somebody walk him during that period of time. Because me as the interviewer, I'm also distracted if I hear noise in the background. Right. So you want to, again, put your best foot forward.
Well,
and if I hear dogs and kids and I hear all kinds of noise and background, like even to the point that make sure your cell phone works. Right. Like you'd be surprised when someone says, "Oh, my cell phone doesn't really work in my house." Well, then maybe that's where you need to go to where your cell phone works. If it's at your neighbor's house, if it's down the street, I don't care where it is. Just make sure it works. But but back to the virtual one, because that's a big one now. I just did a Zoom one this morning. It just makes sure that you find that private, quiet place, that you look professional. Do your hair, put on a little makeup if need be if you're a woman. Put on a nice shirt. If you you have pajama pants on, please get dressed. Yeah. Because again, you want to put your best foot forward. You don't know who's on the other end. That can be just a screener. That can be HR. That can be the owner of the company. And so you want to make sure that you are looking your best. And with that goes along with making sure that you do basic grooming.
Yeah. You know what all of that kind of distills down to? You got to prioritize things, right? You got to make this thing be the most important thing that you're doing at that moment. If you have somebody who's interviewing you, I know when I used to interview, if I believe that there were other things that were more important to you than this moment right here, then go do that other thing. Right? Then don't be here.
I agree.
Don't be here, right? Is it because what happens is I know as a hiring executive, if I hired you, you wouldn't make the assignments that I give you priority. And then what does that lead to, right? So I'm already thinking about those things. So as I'm listening to you talk, I'm saying to myself, wow, I all of the body language, all of the everything, I don't even know that I would waste my time. I think if I signed on to a virtual interview and I saw somebody who did not appear to make my time with them a priority at that moment, I would end the interview right there. I'd be done because
I agree.
You understand what I'm saying? So
yeah.
And
I think that's the larger point too, is that especially when I'm calling up, because a lot of times we do phone screens first, and when I call up, like I said, the very first thing I say is this a good time? Yeah. And if you're in a job market, to me, if your phone rings, and I know in this world we all get those spam calls, they're selling me healthcare 3 times a day, and I got healthcare, so I'm good. But they're still calling me. And if you know you're in the market for a job, you need to make time to answer that phone in a professional way, in a quiet environment, because you just never know who's on the other end of the line. It could be that HR professional that's got 100 resumes, and yours was at the top of the list, and they were so excited to at least get a phone screen with you, even if it was 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or 6 o'clock at night on a Thursday. Answer that phone and as professional as you can. Now, again, life happens. If it winds up not being a good time, say that right from the door. Because I've had that situation where the person is like outside and you can hear the lawn being mowed, and it's clearly not a good time. Don't say, "Oh yeah, it's a good time," and then proceed to talk when I can barely hear myself speak, let alone you. And so I think that people need to be sensitive to the fact that it's not just about them, it's the interviewer. We get distracted. We want to hear a clear conversation about you. And yes, we need people, but we can't compete with a dog barking and the lawn being mowed, right? So just say, you know what, this is not a good time, and if it's possible, choose to call that person back if they let you. If you're lucky enough, because sometimes they'll say no. Okay, well, can I call you back? And then set up a specific time and a date, and then be by that phone, have have your calendar clear and be ready to discuss your qualifications so that you're not distracting them or yourself. Because at the end of the day, you might be distracted too. You got kids running in the background, dogs running, lawnmower happening, TV's on. Like, that's a lot going on. Yeah. You want to be in the best, you want to put yourself in the best light. And whatever that looks like to you, to Eric's point, if that doesn't look like that to you and you think, oh, all that going on is the way you want to present yourself, then guess what? Maybe you're not the best person to work for me, because I need someone that's going to be focused. I'm going to give a task to. They're going to cut all that stuff off and really work on the job at hand, right? And if that's you, show it to me in an interview.
So, Deidre, introduce yourself again to the people. Introduce yourself again to the people who are just tuning in. Give your contact information and just move through those opportunities that you have available.
Express Employment Professionals in Jersey City, New Jersey, helping companies find great employees in the Hudson and Essex County areas of New Jersey. Our website is www.expresspros.com/Jersey City. On there, you will see a listing of our current jobs, and our jobs come pretty rapid fire. And like I was mentioning to you guys earlier, I just got a job order today I haven't even had a chance to put up yet for 4 people for a Monday start. So we're busy, we have jobs, and we can help you.
So, DJ, you talked about putting your best foot forward and being ready for the interview and knowing when you were on the last job and your job duties. What are some of the things that an interviewee should be asking? Because I know that's always the worst question, that the person interviewing saying, do you have any questions? And it seems like the person is like, what do you suggest some questions that...
Thank you for that. So I always recommend that, first of all, you always have a question. Never say, oh, you answered everything. Nope, not good, wrong answer. So my recommendation is, for one, you're going to know the name of the company, right? So I would recommend before the interview, you check out the company's website. Everyone has a website. If they don't, I don't know what kind of company they are. But everyone has a website. Everyone, you can find their social media presence. If they don't have a website, maybe they have social media presence, LinkedIn profile, whatever. Do a little bit of research on the company, because I would like to remember, you're interviewing the company just as well as they're interviewing you. People, I think, forget that too, right? You need to make sure you're showing yourself in the best light, but they got to impress you too, right? Because you're going to sit there and go there every single day. As they always say, like, your job is your second home. And so you want to make sure you're comfortable at that place every single day. Not just about the money. You've got to be comfortable. You got to love what you do, right? And so I would have at least one, if not 2 questions about the company, right? Where are they going? What are their goals? What are some of who are their competition? I mean, some things you can find out on the website, so don't be redundant and ask some things you can find out from the website. Or maybe you see an article that was just written about them, and maybe you can ask a specific question about that. Maybe they just had a merger. What does that mean? What does that mean for their growth? And then I would try to ask at least one question about the job, something that wasn't already asked. Or answered, I should say. So just try to ask one question about that particular role that you're interviewing for.
All right. So,
do you provide? Is there a requirement for drug testing or anything for these jobs? And I know we had this conversation between you and I about marijuana, whether it's going to be legal, not legal, and the hazards of hiring somebody who may have a legal marijuana card. How are you handling it with your company and placing them at different companies?
Yeah, so we do drug testing on a client-specific basis, and it's just that. We service over, that was one of the things I didn't mention earlier in my kind of discussion, is that one of the things about working with a staffing company is we represent over 60 companies. So like interviewing with us is like interviewing with 60 people. So I don't know about you, but finding a job sometimes is a numbers game. And so would you rather go to one company, one-on-one, or you want to come to a staffing firm that if you impress me, I can market you out to 60 other companies. And so it's a client-specific on drug testing as well as background checks.
So listen, when you interview people, we were talking earlier about folks not lying about why they're no longer at the job they're at. Can you just talk a little bit about why people should not badmouth the company that they leave. So, in as much as you want folks to be honest, you know, people saying, well, you know, I left my job because my other boss was a jerk, or do you understand what I'm saying? So
yes, I completely understand what you're saying, and thank you for bringing that up, because, and I love how people say, well, I don't want to badmouth my last job, but and I'm like, no, don't do that, you know, because honestly, you know, there are you know 6 degrees of separation too, right? And nowadays with social media, I think it's more like 3. And so you never know who I know. You might be talking about my husband, and I might say, oh, okay. Yeah. So you know, or a friend that I know, or you know, and there's always 2 sides to every story, right? And so I suggest that you simply give the reason for the departure as honest as you can. I've heard all kinds of stories. I can write a book on how many stories I've heard for why they were let go and why it was never their fault. But I think it's important to never, ever badmouth an employer. And the same for me. I don't badmouth my competition, right? There are some competitions that I'm like, you know, but to my clients trying to get business, I'm not going to badmouth them, because at the end of the day, I make myself look bad. It's kind of the way I look at it, right? They might say, oh, Deidre, I was working with that company before. What does that mean? What does that say about me, right? And so the same thing with an employer. You know, that might be an old client of mine or a current client of mine, and you're bad-mouthing them, you know, and I might place people there that love it. And what does that mean about that? You know, so I just think that just be honest, and if it doesn't make sense to you in terms of you feel like, oh, I'm on the fence about what I should say, and me and this manager got into a fight, and that's why they let me go, you know, just say it was personal.
Hey, speak a little bit, if you will.
Stated earlier, you said to find you is expresspros.com/Jersey City. When they go onto the website, how there's an application for them to apply to whichever that appeals to them. Now, are they required to upload a resume, or is the application enough? Because, you know, some of our people may not have access to be able, or don't know how to put a resume together, nor have the money to do a resume. What do you require?
So we definitely require at a minimum an application. If you have a resume, that's great, and there is a section for you to upload it there, but you can just do the application.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. So you say
please
that,
fill it out as complete as you can.
But you say that, but let me ask you a question, though, right? Because job searching is a competition. So if you have one person who just fills out the application, but you have another person who fills out the application and has uploaded a resume, is there any additional weight given to that individual who did both?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Now this is what I will say. I will say this, that if you didn't fill out all the details on your application because you wanted to say see resume, I've seen that quite a bit, then, you know, that's fine. You know, but I would still, at the end of the day, by law, we actually are required to have an application on file.
Okay.
Not just a resume. So I still, at the end of the day, even if you came to me with just a resume, I would still make you fill out an application. It's just because we're required by law to keep them on file for 7 years. So yes, please fill it out as completely as you can. I know it's a pain in the butt. I know people don't want to do it, you know, but a lot of the stuff that's on there is really, really vital for us to help you find a job.
Got it. So can you also speak a little bit about, because I know as a hiring manager, I used to get frustrated and with people who would, I know, Diane, but people,
Eric, would you have hired me? I think I would have been scared to interview with you.
You know, listen, I thought anyway that I was an incredible interviewer because I was fair, right? And I took the time, you know, like you have some interviewers who have like lists of questions that they ask which really don't pertain to anything, right? And because I've been interviewed too by some of those people. I'm like, why are they asking me that question? That doesn't make any sense. Now, there are some psychological profile questions that are asked, right? Because they're trying to glean some things, right? So it's not a direct question to the job per se, but it gives the hiring person a sense of how you might handle, a conflict resolution issue or other kinds of things, right? And you want to make sure the person's a good fit. So I really used to spend a lot of time learning how to interview people. But one of the things that frustrated me the most, Deidre, were folks who padded their resumes. Right? So,
ding, ding, that was me.
so what they do, right, is they go online and get somebody else's resume and they fill that stuff in. But that's not really what they do, and it's not who they are. And can you tell people how quickly you can reveal that in an interview?
Yes. Yes, that's a great question. So, because I've interviewed so many people over the years, it's just so interesting to see when someone pads their resume. I even find out, I'll ask them, for example, so what is a first person of impressions means, and they're like, oh, that's the receptionist. Okay, that's great. That's a fancy title. And nothing's wrong with that. I love fancy titles. However, when I drill down for your work experience, if you need to pull out your resume to remember what you did at a job, I'm super suspicious. Because you should be able to talk. Remember, looking for a job is a job. Getting an interview requires preparation. You're just not going to show up at 10 a.m. Or even virtually at 10 a.m. And not really remember and go through your resume, right? Your experience. Your experience. It should be firsthand to you. I don't necessarily need notes about what I did. Maybe I might need specific things for examples, and I love examples. So maybe I write those down. But if you're kind of going through your resume to remember, air quotes, what you did, I'm super suspicious of that. Yeah. And so I would encourage someone, if you do, I'm not completely against someone helping you with your resume, because I do think that some people have a better skill set than others. When I was in college, that just happened to be my thing. And all my friends came to me to help me with their resume. And some people have it, and some people it's just not their thing. And so if you get someone to help you, that's fine. But just be prepared to talk about your resume and your experience that you know firsthand, and it's not made up, because it will come out. And at the end of the day, if you get this job and you told them you were an expert PowerPoint person, and for some reason they chose not to test you, even though Express tests you to make sure you know PowerPoint, and then they day one or two, they say, oh, you know what, Diane, can you please put together this PowerPoint presentation? I have it for tomorrow for the board meeting. And you're like, that's not going to work. So just be honest on your resume, because things might come up. And again, you're going to represent yourself in the best light. You know the material. You know what you did at the past jobs. You shouldn't have to sort of, remember, unless they're digging deep, right? Like I may not remember what I did at the job 5 years ago, especially if I did. Nowadays, people stay places for 1 year. So maybe you don't remember the four jobs ago. That's fine, right? Maybe you might need a refresher. But again, you're going to come to the interview with that information, because you're going to look at your resume ahead of time, right? You're going to remember what you wrote down. And if it's padded, that's going to come out eventually.
And so I'm trying to give people the picture of all of this, right? Because people believe, Deidre, that if they call you, right? It's so much, because I've done this for so long. So people will call you and they believe that, like, you're wasting their time too, right? Like, yeah. So as you're interviewing, so in their mind, it's like, well, I took the time to call you. And so when you don't call them back as the recruiter, they say, well, that recruiter wasted my time. I just want to lay this out, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or you can elaborate on it. So what's happening with you as a recruiter is you have multiple people that you're looking at. And like you said at the beginning of this segment, you get paid by the company that hires them. And now I don't know about you as a recruiter, but recruiters that I've gone through, they only got paid if the person lasted there, whatever that contracted window was, right? So you've got to do your best as a recruiter to vet through all of the people, find the top pick, And sometimes some of these companies, they're not exclusive with one company, right? So some of these hiring companies, they may be working with 4 or 5 recruiting companies. So you're now competing, trying to put your best talent up against these other companies who were putting their best talent up. So if you're doing 5 interviews for that one job, that one person who thinks that their time was really valuable and that they didn't need to prioritize the interview, so they had the dog barking, the baby crying, the TV on with the Judge Judy show in the background, right? And then you don't call them back, it's because you looked and said, this isn't the best opportunity to land this job. And let's be clear, at the end of the day, so that you can earn your living.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So that's a really, really good point on a recruiting standpoint, because you're talking about direct hire, and we do a ton of that as well. That's full-time placement right from the door when a company is going to pay you to identify them talent, and they're going to pay you in a big way. And one of the things that we don't have time to do, I tell my staff, time is money, right? We always heard that adage, right? Yep. And so if I'm going to interview Eric, and Eric is awesome, right? And Eric's saying everything that needs to be said and sounds like a great fit for my client, I present Eric to the company, and the company says, not really feeling Eric. Eric doesn't have what I need. Who else you got? And I move on to Diane. Diane's got everything that's needed. And the client says, Diane's exactly what I need. I want to interview Diane. Now, as a recruiter, you would say, I should have time, right? This is what all my associates think. I should have time to call Eric back and say, Eric, the client passed on you, and they just didn't think you had enough experience for the job. They're going with another candidate. However, in the real life, we are moving at the speed of light, because we are only worried. We're following the dollar, be honest with you. We're following the dollar. Yeah. And if Diane's what they want right now, then I'm going to vet Diane. I'm going to prep Diane for the interview. I'm going to talk to the company about Diane. I'm doing everything I can to get Diane in front of that company and get her hired. And Eric might feel some kind of way, and he might want me to call him back and chitty-chatty on the phone, because people that don't have work also want to chat with us on the phones, and we're very busy. And so we might just, we try our best, and I try to train my staff to at least shoot Eric a quick email and say, Eric, sorry, the client, chose another direction, right? We'll consider some other job opportunities. We try our best to do that. It's not always possible. We place a couple hundred people, so at the end of the day, if we did that all day, we'd be doing just that all day instead of, placing people. So we try our best. On the temp side, though, I think where I thought you were alluding to was about them just wanting us to call them back, because that happens to us too, where people just want to call and, you didn't call me back about that job, and why didn't I get chosen versus this other, someone else or whatever. And unfortunately, we just don't have time to call everyone back to say, sorry, you didn't get the job. Trust and believe, when you get the job, we will call you back. But again, I talked earlier about the 60 companies plus that we service. And if you're oppressing us in a big way, and you have the right qualifications, we'll place you at a different client. Maybe you just weren't right for that client, right? And we'll place you somewhere else, but you still have to give a good impression to us. Like, I have people so nasty to me tell me, I can't even tell you the kind of nasty emails I get. I had to block them because I was supposed to do this, I was supposed to do that for them because I interviewed them. And again, at the end of the day, remember, you still have to put your best foot forward. You might also not interview well. Eric might not interview well with me, and hence I'm not going to send him to my client. I'm kind of that middleman, right? Or that middle woman. And so I'm going to, you need to impress me. Because if you don't impress me, you're probably not going to impress my client. I've been doing this for 20 years. And so Diane said 10 years. I just wanted to correct her on that.
No, I said over 10 years.
Well, 20 is a big number.
Say 20 years, that's right.
We're celebrating 20 years in business in 2020. So it's a big year for us. We have big goals, and we're not going to let this virus get in our way of placing people for work. Because people, at the end of the day, they still got to work.
So, can we just still...
She's on top of her game because she gets acknowledgement from her big corporate people every year and goes on these fabulous trips that they send her her family for free. So she don't mess around.
Congratulations. Can we distill this down to this, guys?
Yeah, my Cabo trip got moved because of this stupid virus. It needs to go away already so I can be luxuriating on the beach at the end of August.
Can we distill this down to this?
And that's kudos to my team, Diane. I want to give them the credit. It's not me. I'm not a one-woman show. Right. I have a staff of people that support and do the good work, and they know who they are. And my Express Employment Professionals Jersey City team is rocking it out even right now. We're all working remotely in our individual homes, and we're doing our work. And I definitely could not do it without my team.
Okay.
Yeah. So what, if I could go back to the interviewing process, one of the things that people need to understand when they're interviewing, that attitude is everything. And when I did it, I've gotten a lot of businesses that called me back and said that this person just had such a sense of entitlement, like they were getting the job.
Right.
So
yeah, that's a challenge.
So listen,
what suggestions do you have for people to not be nervous? Because you're already nervous when you're going in for an interview, trying to make sure you look right and you talk right and you don't miss words and stuff like that. How do you keep them from being not nervous? What are suggestions, as well as not being too friendly and personal in interviews as well?
At the interview? Mm-hmm. So for me, preparation is everything. You know, even in 20 years in business, when I go talk to a company, I prepare myself, right? I do some research on the company. I do some research on the person. We are in an interesting world nowadays where you have so much information at your fingertips. If you can go into my LinkedIn profile right now, and you can probably see my picture, you can learn a little bit more about me, you can see where I worked at before I owned Express Employment, so you can see tons of stuff. You have that at your fingertips. So if you prepare, and I highly recommend, that you prepare ahead of time with a friend, a spouse, whomever. Just a couple questions about your resume so that you're going in there remembering what you did. Remember, we talked about that a little bit while ago, right? Remembering what you did, and that it comes off feeling very, very confident. Right? You don't want to come off sounding like you're unsure of yourself, because that's going to translate to what they feel is going to be the kind of employee that they're going to hire. Right. So if you just go over your resume with a friend a couple days ahead of time so that they can kind of coach you on, stop getting rid of those ums. I mean, I took a public speaking class, so I remember all that good stuff, and even peeking, you want to try to the best you can to try to eliminate filters, right? And so if you have a really friend that you trust, they can help you with some of those things. And then also going in person, you mentioned about being too friendly. Oh, and the handshake. Oh my God, people have almost broke my hand sometimes, and you want to practice your handshake. We're not shaking hands now, but eventually we will. And you don't want to break someone's hand, or you don't want to have the limp hand, or you don't want the sweaty hand, right? And so you need to actually practice a handshake. I know, as silly as that sounds, that should be a practice thing. And then the friendly thing is you definitely don't want to come across too friendly. I mean, believe it or not, I have this one quick story. This woman actually wore too much perfume, and she didn't get the job because when you go for an interview, this is an in-person interview, the woman closed the door, and then she called me back later. She said, Deidre, I couldn't breathe because the woman had too much perfume on, so she blew it. She made the interview and it was a really high, expensive position. I mean, not expensive, what's the wrong word? It was a high-level position. And she didn't get the job because she couldn't really convince the lady, because in 5 minutes she wanted her out of her office because the perfume was too strong. So don't wear perfume. So
I got a question for you. You mentioned your LinkedIn profile, which brings me to social media pages. Can you talk to folks about their come on now, their social media pages?
Yes.
Come on. Go ahead. I'm gonna sit back now and you go ahead.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I'm gonna plug in my webinar, and Diane knows this. She said it was okay to plug it. Next week, Eric, I'm doing the top 10 ways to find a job now in the COVID world. And one of my particular tips is just that. It's just to check your social media profile. And I'm still telling this to my nieces and nephews, believe it or not. I go to their Facebook page or their Instagram page, and they're just, they got everything hanging out. And if you are going for a certain kind of position, trust and believe they're going to check your social media profile out. And they might even do it before they even call you. So if you feel like that's the way you want to present yourself, right? The way I like to give the example is, if you are comfortable with your social media page and you will allow your mom and your dad to view everything you say and what they see, then you're probably okay. But if you're like, oh, my mom is not on Facebook, so I can post this picture of me in my string bikini. Not that anything's wrong with it. I'm just saying I don't want you to present yourself that way to a company. They might they always talk about, first impressions are a lasting one. And is that the lasting impression that you want to give? Is that person with the string bikini or the chugging beer, bombs or whatever it is, or cursing or controversial stuff? Be honest with you, there's not even just pictures. Sometimes people are super controversial on social media, and if that's you, that's cool. But I'm just saying that recognize that employers are going to check out your social media profile. If not by the time they call you, by the time they hire you. If it's between you and someone else that's squeaky clean social media, they might choose that person. Because at the end of the day, remember, you're representing them. So if you are working at a company, and just like you guys can all check out my LinkedIn profile, I can check out your LinkedIn profile. I can check out, even if you think it's secret, my Facebook page is private to my friends. But let's say me and Diane are friends on Facebook, and now her friend wants to hire Deidre, and they want to check me out. You know what I mean? They can bypass and find me. So nothing, like I said, if you put anything on the internet, it's there for life. So clean it up, ladies and gentlemen. Clean up that social media. What do you want it to say about you? And that's your brand, right?
Deidre, because my daughter, that's in Brooklyn, was doing hiring at one particular time, and she had to let go one of the teacher's aides. Come to find out, she was trying to figure out, who was stealing all the snacks in the snack room. And she said we would put out tons of snacks. And she said, and 2 days later, everything was gone. So she couldn't figure it out. Come to find out, she got some insight from another employee, went on the social media page. The teacher's aide was posting all the goodies up on Instagram.
Dummy. It's just dumb.
Right. And wasn't on her page, but somebody else was on her page. They screenshot it and sent it back to her and was like, look at this dummy. Just like, yeah.
Well,
You'd be surprised. People put on social media just astounds me. Like I said, I'm coaching I have nieces and nephews in their early 20s, right? And because I'm Facebook friends with them, and my one nephew, I'm gonna mess with him. I won't say his name, but I saw something on Facebook, and I was like, you need to take that down, because I don't think that's the way an employer wants to view you.
Right.
And if he chose to listen to me or not, I don't think I went back to check. I'm hoping he did. But you just want to put yourself in the best light. I'm going to say this 1,000 times over, right? You want to be in the best light as possible. And if that light is a little dimmed or dark, you might not get the job. And we're trying to close the gap, too. At the end of the day, you don't want to be out of work. Yes, we do have unemployment insurance, and that's awesome. But I look at unemployment insurance as a savings account. Right? You're going to use it only when you need it. If you can get a job now and you don't have to dip into that unemployment insurance, save it when you really get laid off from a job. Because I can't tell you how many times we call people for assignments, and again, I feel like they just don't think we have real jobs. And they're like, oh, Deidre, we don't want that job. That's going to mess up my unemployment. No, it's not. It's a job. It's a job. It's not going to mess up your unemployment. You're going to mess up your unemployment, because when they call me and they say, hey, we offered, Joe Smith a job, I'm going to tell them, by law, I have to tell them, oh, he turned down a job. This is a specific job. This is how much it was making. This is where it was. And you're going to get denied. So when we call you for a job, please, if it's something that fits you, please take it. If it's something that doesn't fit you, that's a whole different conversation that we need to have about what works and what you do want to do, what you don't want to do, right? But don't sit there and think that I'm going to sit back and collect unemployment, because I can't tell you time and time again, when we've heard those stories too, I'm going to sit back and collect unemployment only to find out when unemployment dried up, now they're calling us crying the blues because they're about to lose their apartment, can't pay their mortgage, kids are hungry. And I'm like, if you had taken the job that I had 6 months ago, you'd be working.
Yeah.
Right? And let's just keep it real. People sometimes don't have the right information, and they think that, oh, let me get, quick money. And it's quick money for now, and that's exactly what it is. It's quick money. And when that money is dried up and gone, what are you going to do?
Well, listen, what I'd like to do, Deidre, firstly, again, congratulations on your 20 years. I'm all, for entrepreneurs and business owners, specifically Black business owners. I would love to try to figure out a way to weave your business into what it is that we do here, right? Because we're always about informing, engaging, and empowering. And to actually have a person who has a placement agency who has jobs and can give this kind of information out is valuable in our community. So I'll talk to Diane off air, but certainly I want to try to create an ad for you to run during our show so that we can drive traffic to you. But then I'd like to lean on you from time to time to provide the level of expertise and insight that you were so gracious to provide to our listening audience today.
I appreciate that, and I would be most happy to do so. Because I think a lot of what we talked about today, that individuals just don't hear. Because I keep seeing it time and time again, and I've done, and I continue to do, events and webinars, and now in this world, webinars on how to build an effective resume, how to interview effectively, how to look for a job, be honest with you, how to have appropriate follow-up with a company. And so there's so much out there that I think is missing, and it crosses all ages. You would think that it's just our younger folks, but believe it or not, it's some of the older individuals as well that need to hear. Just based on my experience, I say I used to have a staff member work for me years ago, and she said she could write a book called "Why You Ain't Got a Job," right? Because we've seen the mistakes, and we see them so many times and time again, and we want to help you. We want, at the end of the day, it's a win-win, right? If you go to work, I make money, so that's a win-win to me. You make money, I make money.
So I got a question. With the praying that this virus and lockdown ends soon, what do you perceive to be some of the hottest jobs or employees will be looking for in our post COVID-19 lifestyle?
Well, I am hoping, because I like to eat, that the restaurants are going to come back. Right? That's a big area. I actually don't place in the restaurant industry, which is why 100% of my companies are considered essential. But just from a selfish standpoint, I like to eat out. I'm hoping that comes back. In my market in Jersey City and Hudson and Essex County, as you probably both know, there's a lot of distribution centers there. They are hurting right now. Even though I do have business, I have some clients that have let people go because they are not that busy. Because their products are getting into the stores that you and I buy, right? And the stores aren't open right now, so therefore there's nothing for them to move. Mm-hmm. So I see that those businesses, they have to come back, right? Because eventually we have to still buy clothes for our kids, and we still got to buy products to survive, and thrive. Yeah. And so those particular companies they have to come back. Hotel industry, I do work with the hotel industry. I mentioned about my trip that got moved to August. That has to come back, right? Because eventually, once everyone has money and we want to go places, we want to spend our disposable income, and we might want to travel. We might want to do a staycation, right? And so those things, those are three big areas I see have to come back. Obviously the ones that are happening now is anything related to, supermarkets. Those folks are doing pretty good right now. Anything related to, me sitting home right now and delivering food and it's showing up. That happened this morning. I got a delivery of some juice because I'm doing like a cleanse. I told Diane that. So anyway, I'm doing this, so my juice got delivered to me this morning, which is awesome. So I think that kind of business will continue to thrive, even as we sort of see what's happening in our world, is that we're all moving at the speed of light, even when we're home. Right, and we want conveniences of being home and you getting it to us, right? Uber came out of a deficiency of taxi drivers, right? And so now we have Uber Eats and Grubhub and a host of others that are filling that void because some restaurants just could not afford to hire an extra person to make deliveries, and now they've got that outlet. And so I think a lot of those things are going to continue to thrive, and I'm really praying for the restaurant industry, because that is a really tough industry to be in general, and to be like 100% closed to some extent. Some of them are 20%, 30% occupancy because they can only do takeout is tough.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
Thank you, Deidre. I appreciate it.
This has been wonderful.
Can I plug my webinar, Diane?
Do it.
Yes,
Go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm doing a Zoom webinar. I'm doing it on tax day, even though we don't have to turn our taxes in. Hallelujah, because I'm not ready. Next Wednesday, April 15th at 12 noon. It's on a lot of what I talked about today is going to be on there, and more, right? It's going to be the top 10 tips to find a job now in a COVID world. If you want to get details on that Zoom webinar, I need you to email us at jobs.jerseycitynj@expresspros.com. That's JOBS.jerseycitynj@expresspros.com. And I could put that in the feed as well later on, because I'm just finishing up the presentation. And I too will be practicing. It'll be a 30-minute presentation that I think that if you're out of work right now,
you got time.
You want to hear this.
You said it's jobs.
Definitely.
What is it again?
It's jobs, Jersey City, NJ, all together, @expresspros.com.
Okay, I got one more question. Now,
we over. But go ahead. 30 seconds.
Okay, one quick question. Now, what type of interview techniques would you have for someone who's looking to potentially be the next senator of New Jersey? Because I'm getting interviewed by everybody right now, and I need to put my best foot forward.
Woo! That sounds like a Diane question.
He doesn't want me to answer it. That's why he's.
That is a Diane question. I do not play senators. I'm gonna stay out of that argument. I can coach you offline on how to present yourself and how to put your best foot forward.
No worries. Well, no worries. My people will call your people, and we'll do virtual lunch.
Sounds like it. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds great. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And again, you said jobs.jerseycitynj@expresspros.com.
Yes, I know it's a mouthful. I know. I'm gonna write it in the I'm gonna write it in your section as well.
All right.
So feel free to pin it or whatnot for my webinar.
And
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of the information about Express Employment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning in. Stay safe, stay home, and help save lives. See you guys tomorrow.
Live from
God bless everyone.
I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is